Hi, I wanted to talk with you today about one of my favorite techniques in EFT, and that is called Tell the Story technique. And this technique is used on working on traumatic memories. And the reason why I love this technique is because when you use it with a client, usually takes about an hour, you can actually eliminate the reactivity of that traumatic memory. And once that is alleviated, it will never come back again. And wow, what a freeing experience that is. As you may already know, trauma is stored in the amygdala through the five senses, and EFT works directly on the amygdala. Now, those traumatic memories that are stored in the amygdala never go away. They're there forever. However, with EFT, you can remove the emotional reactivity connected with that memory so it doesn't keep getting re-triggered. I'm going to tell you today on how to use Tell the Story technique so that you can use it with your clients that are suffering from traumatic memories. Now, let me be clear. The Tell the Story technique works on a specific incident, a specific memory, not something general like child abuse. What you would have to do is you have to go in and you have to find an actual incident that occurred and tap on that until you've neutralized all the reactivity in that story. So let me give you an example then of how this works. I'm going to use the example of a car accident. So let's say you're going to work with somebody who was in a serious car accident. The first thing that you want to do is you want to ask the client what it is that they're feeling about telling the story about this car accident. And generally speaking, there's going to be anxiety around that. And so you're going to want to tap on that initially. Let's say you ask them what the SUDS is around their anxiety of getting ready to tell you the story, and they say it's a 10. So then you're going to tap on that anxiety. So even though I have this anxiety about telling you the story of the car accident, I love and accept myself. And you go through all the points and maybe do several rounds until you get the anxiety down to, let's say, a 1 or a 2, or ideally a 0. Then from there, what you want to do is you want to have them tell you the story, starting at a part where there's no anxiety at all. In other words, the trauma hasn't happened yet. So as they lead into the story, the emotions gradually build. As they begin to tell you the story, then you will stop them whenever the emotions start to peak. So I kind of liken it to sliced bread. You're breaking up the story into all these intervals, and when the emotions spike, that's where you tap on whatever the emotion is, whether it's anger, fear, hurt, sadness, whatever it is, then you tap right there on that piece of the story until the SUDS goes down to around a 1. 2 at the highest, but try to get it down to a 1 or a 0 before moving on to other parts of the story. So let's start then with this car accident. So once you've gotten their anxiety down to around a 0, a 1, 2 at the most, then have them start telling you the story from where there is no emotional reactivity. So let's take the car accident. Let's say the story begins with, I'm leaving my home, I'm heading for work, I get in my car and I take off. And then I start approaching the intersection. And you know, because you have an idea of what the story is, that that's where the accident happened, right? So as you're telling the story, as they're telling the story, I always check in with my clients, and when I know they're approaching something that's probably got intensity, I'm going to stop them and I'm going to ask them, how are you feeling right now? Because oftentimes they won't tell you what they're feeling until they're into the emotion. And I try to do this as painless as possible for the client so that they're not re-traumatized as they're telling the story. So if I know the accident occurred in the intersection, when they tell me I'm approaching the intersection, I would then ask them, so what are you feeling right now? And it's like, oh, I'm feeling some anxiety because I know what's going to happen. So we would stop right there and we would tap on the anxiety. So even though I have this anxiety, I love and accept myself, and do several rounds on that feeling. It's not necessary to get into the thoughts behind the feeling, although sometimes you may feel it very appropriate that you do work with some of those thoughts. But I've found many times that just tapping on the feeling is enough to bring the SUDS down. Once the SUDS is down to about a 0, 1, 2 max, then you would say, okay, go ahead and continue telling me more about that story. And so then they may say, okay, so then I'm entering the intersection, and as I turn to my right, I see the car approaching. What are you feeling right now? I'm at a 10. Okay, great. Let's tap on that. And I usually ask them to hold that memory, hold that picture in their minds of the approaching car as we're tapping. And that keeps the emotion up so that we're going to clear it. And we just tap on that again several rounds, assess the SUDS. And when the SUDS gets down to around a 0 or a 1, then keep moving on with the story. You do this until you've gotten to the end of the story. So at this point, you have tapped on all the triggering areas. At least that's what you believe at this point. What I do then at the end of the story is I ask the clients then to close their eyes and now think about that story that they just told me about this incident with this car accident. They close their eyes and I ask them to see if anything at all comes up around the incident. Sometimes they go, oh yeah, I'm feeling some fear, whatever it may be. And so great. What that means is not that the EFT didn't work, but it means that we missed an aspect. So it's important that you tap on all the aspects that are triggering. And then what we would do is they would tell me what it was that the fear was associated with as it relates to the car accident. You don't want to go off on any tangents and go into any other deeper issues. You want to stick with the car accident because the point of Tell the Story is to neutralize the emotions associated with that particular memory. It's very important. So then you would tap on the fear. Get that down to a 0, have them close their eyes again. When they get to a place where they say, you know, nothing's coming up, then I always double check and ask them to tell me now the story. And so then I have them begin at the beginning. And usually what happens is they'll report that it's gotten a little fuzzy. The details aren't quite as vivid. And that's because the emotional reactivity is what holds the vividness of the memory intact. So once you've neutralized the emotions, then the memory begins to fade. They never forget the memory, but it does begin to fade. Then I have them tell me the story. If anything comes up while they're telling me the story, then we'll tap on that. Most times they're able to tell me the story and nothing more comes up at that point. And so at the end of the session, then I let them know that at this point, it appears as though everything has been neutralized. However, if something does come up, that doesn't mean that the EFT didn't work. It means that we missed that aspect and we can tap on that when they come back in for their next session. And so far, in my experience has been we've covered all of the different aspects. And so once that's neutralized, it will stay neutralized for life. It doesn't come back. So I hope that you've learned something about this technique. And if it's something that resonates with you, then I really encourage you to give it a shot and to try it. It's so powerful and it gives clients so much relief. So thank you for listening to this video. I hope to continue to get out more videos as I'm going along and teaching more and more about EFT through my YouTube channel. Thank you.